today's episode, we're thrilled to have Heidi, the head of product practice at Martyn Bassett Associates, sharing her 20 plus years of wisdom in recruiting. Dive deep with us into the world of recruitment as Heidi unravels its complexities, explores her career journey, and shares tips on identifying great talent. Heidi will also provide invaluable advice for navigating the job market, reveal her strategies for balancing client and candidate expectations, and share insights on compensation negotiation and successful recruiting efforts. For anyone considering a career in recruitment or looking to understand the industry better, this conversation is not to be missed. Welcome to Articulate This. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 1 of Articulate This. My guest today is Heidi Ram. I'm excited to explore the world of recruiting with her. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So today, we're going to talk about the world of recruiting. You were the first person that came to mind when I had an idea for this episode, and I thought you would be perfect for this. So I'm going to just jump into a bunch of questions and let's see where this conversation takes us.
Sounds great.
So most people in the tech have engaged with recruiters in various ways, but most people don't really understand the role a recruiter plays or what they actually do. Could you help us understand the world of recruiting?
Well, you know what? That's a great question to start with because, I've been a recruiter for a long time, over 20 years. And it's always interesting when I meet up with folks who really don't know the role that a recruiter can play in their job search process or in their hiring process. So I'm happy to talk about what I do. So first of all, there's a lot of different types of recruiters or business models in the recruitment business. And that really shapes the value that a recruiter brings either to a candidate or to a company who's hiring. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about what I do specifically in that I work for a third-party search services company, which means that our firm gets engaged by technology companies to help them with what is typically really tough to find strategic or very senior level hires. And so that means that my role as a recruiter is very much defined by the client who has engaged us and the problems that they're trying to solve for. You know, the persona of person who they need to help them get to that next level in their business. Now, the interesting thing about my role, just because I've been in this business for a long time and was a part of the early days of our product practice, is that I actually lead a practice within our firm. So in addition to recruiting really senior level talent in product, I'm also involved in working with our clients. So meeting CEOs, meeting with founders, listening to the dreams of the companies they want to build. And that's a really humbling, a really kind of cool place to be because, when we think about startups and we think about founders building companies, sometimes what we don't realize is that human element behind every company, behind every founder. And as a recruiter, we have a chance to get a glimpse into their worries, into the sometimes insecurities they might have about the business that they're building. And it's a real honor to walk alongside of founders as they stand up their businesses and really begin to build out, these companies. Um, so that's a lot of what I do. So working with senior level people as a recruiter, and then working with our clients on their journey to building companies.
So what are
Uh,
some roadblocks that you would come up against that we might not likely realize?
aha,
Hmm.
roadblocks. So I was, yeah. Okay, so let me tell you the first roadblock that is really I didn't it's interesting how as you the more and more you do this and the more companies you meet within the founders, one thing is becomes very, very clear, whether you're working with candidates or whether you're working with clients, is that everyone thinks they're pretty great. So if you think about, so let's talk first about candidates, okay?
Yep.
So let's think about chief product officers, vice presidents of product, those really senior principal product people who are like at the top of their game.
Yep.
You know, this is a persona of individual who really takes on a tremendous ambitious role in a tech company. I mean, the decisions
Yep.
that they make are foundational to the success of that company and define what that company is going to sell or to offer to the market that will generate revenue in a best case scenario. Okay, we won't
Yep.
talk about if it does. So they are often very accomplished. They are very experienced. They are some of the highest income earning individuals in that organization. And it's natural for these individuals to be confident and really think they're pretty great.
Have a high level of confidence.
High level of confidence. And then you have, so that's sort of the candidates in these roles. And then you have founders,
Mm.
especially first-time founders who, are bright-eyed and they're envisioning, the business that they're going to build. And maybe they have investment. Maybe someone gave them $10 million.
Mm.
Wow. Someone gave us $10 million to build this business. And there's confidence and there's enthusiasm and their stuff is so great. Who wouldn't want to come work here? Right? Because
Yeah.
we're great. And so these realities of how excited everyone is about the job that they do and how good they are, and then how amazing of a company they have and who wouldn't want to come work here. These are the unique situations that a recruiter steps into and begins to work with, right? Um,
So,
which can become roadblocks or be roadblocks in the journey of hiring
yeah.
or about making that next move when you're at the top of your game.
So you brought up some good points, and I'm just going to jump to another question down
Sure.
further down that I thought resonates on this topic, and I guess that's like assessing cultural fit.
Yeah.
And how do you know? Because like you said, you have both confident individuals, and they may be fully qualified on both ends, but then really it comes down to chemistry and fit. So how do you try to suss that out so that it helps both parties?
Yeah. Wow. That's so cultural fit is a huge topic. And this is a topic that it can take a lot of different legs when you start talking about cultural fit. Now the first thing we have to realize when we talk about cultural fit, because everybody wants it, okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
candidates, if I'm in a conversation with someone who's a leadership, a leader, a product leader, oftentimes they will say, well, what's really important to me is cultural alignment. I want to work for a company and a set of, leaders who I'm really aligned to culturally. And then if you talk with founders and CEOs and leaders who are hiring, they'll say, culture is really important to us. Culture is number one, they might even say.
Yep.
Okay. Yet, if everyone is saying it, how do we know that it's a match or a fit? Well, the first piece as a recruiter is really understanding the the organization who is doing the hiring, okay? And looking at them from a couple of different lenses. The first lens is are they hiring? Is that organization hiring for the culture that exists today? Or might they be hiring for who they will become? And that's a very interesting situation to step into, because depending on the stage of the business who's hiring, depending on the reason why they're hiring a strategic leader or for a strategic role, and the various goals that they're trying to achieve, some of which are very specific, that may complement the culture that an organization has today, or it might begin to modify and change that culture.
Yeah.
Okay. So, real life example, what I mean by that. So if you have, let's say the company is a pre-Series A startup. Okay. So they're a baby company. They're probably fewer than 20 people, maybe even fewer than 10 people. And they're going to make a key strategic hire, someone to join that organization. And at that stage of business, everyone is still doing. Okay. Yeah. So even if you're hiring a leader, that leader is going to be a doer. The culture is likely to remain relatively intact based on the culture of the founders and kind of the way that they are and the community that they've already gathered. Okay. And most founders at that stage, they kind of want to bottle up the lightning, right? They kind of love, like these are the days they're going to look back on and remember forever, right? Yeah. These are the days that, Netflix might make a series about them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one type of situation. But what if that company is now doing 100 million ARR?
Yeah.
Okay. And now, wow, the stakes are getting higher, because that next investment round or that next piece that's going to fuel the next chapter of that business maybe require leaders who have done something at a scale that the company has never seen before. So that's going to introduce different styles of leadership. That's going to introduce different decisions that have to be made. And those things are likely to change some parts of the culture.
So very interesting points. And you actually made me think of some other questions here along those lines. So when you're helping clients and have, I guess you would somewhat provide a little bit of coaching based on your experience on this, because they may think they are looking for a certain type of role, but because of your experience in this industry and know all those levels that they have to progress to, has there been situations where you've been able to coach and help them understand, like, maybe you need to focus the role a little different based on what you explained, because bootstrapping versus scaling, two different things, two different skill sets.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because it's important always to realize that people hire people.
Yep.
People work for people. We don't actually work for companies. We work with and for and in partnership with other people. And sometimes a leader might have kind of that, they have that ideal persona, the person who they really aspire to hire. Sometimes it's a very specific set of kind of aspirational goals. Maybe I want someone who works from these organizations, or I want someone who's done these types of things. And as a recruiter, if that's the dream of the client, are those persona kind of North Star candidates, my role is to seek that person out and set up those conversations between, my client and that type of candidate. And, it's always an interesting situation when those when a client has the chance to meet that ideal person, because sometimes that's where the dream dies.
Yeah.
Because they realize, wow, love that persona of experience, love that type of candidate, but for these reasons, we're not ready for that person yet.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen that a few times where that
yeah,
has happened. And
yeah,
it's this is why I'm a strong believer in culture too. And
yeah.
sometimes you may not understand where you are in your cycle, and it's important if you're like if you are thinking of your future, are you putting the right person in the right situation for them to be successful?
Yeah. The other opposite piece is also true. So if you think about so if I'm talking with people who work for really large product organizations, okay, like they're at the top of their game at a company who you and I would recognize the name of.
Hmm.
And so when I'm talking with them at some point, it's not unusual for someone at the top of the game to say, you know what? I miss the days. I miss the days of building a business. I really want to work for a startup again. I want to get involved in the weeds in those early days. I want to be the one who's tapped to buy the toilet paper that day or clean the kitchen sink. And as we engage in those discussions, sometimes, while that sounds really wonderful and that's a dream, the practical considerations around compensation, that's going to look very different.
Yeah.
Around the degree of doing versus being, doing versus thinking. Those things all change in a startup. And sometimes that's not a gap, that can't be crossed over again, right?
It's also the way technology has accelerated and frameworks have changed. It's
Mm,
also, I've seen that, you may think you could go back into that world if it's 2, 3 years, but things are changing so quickly.
yeah.
Trying to adapt, it might be a shock to the system on both ways, like going from structured to unstructured and then startup to like enterprise. It's very, these days I find things are moving really quick. So trying to assess that situation maybe not as simple as it may seem.
So true. It takes special people to do radical things, to do different things, to change, to do a whole, pivot in one's career. Just like, you know, there's always, I think, a fascination between, for product managers to want to solve for problems that they themselves are a user of, right? Or that they can really understand. So, it's not unusual for someone who's been in the enterprise software space to say, you know what, I would really love to work on a travel app or an a D2C, consumer brand or something that, I can really get behind and use as a user myself. And that's a really, pretty dramatic pivot in even how product is done. In an enterprise environment, you might get excited if you have 3 wins, like net new customers in a quarter,
Yeah.
versus in a consumer, where you are, it's about millions,
Yeah.
and monthly active users at a scale, that one might not even imagine. So there's a lot to think about when you think about, radical pivots to a career and how that fits into the culture of how you like to work and how you want to work and what gets the best out of you and is the best for your employer, who has entrusted you with possibly the single most strategic role in the company that will determine if there is a company, and that is the person who runs product.
So along those lines, then, like, what advice would you have for people trying to navigate this crazy market, or hoping that a recruiter could help them?
The market that we're in today.
Yeah,
Okay, so
because it's changed a lot from
yeah,
the pandemic time
yeah,
when things were all virtual,
yeah.
hiring people change over. Now, a couple of years later, there's a different feeling in the market itself. So,
Yeah.
how would you help? What would be the advice to that person today?
Okay. So So there's a couple of things to think about. So in this crazy market that we're in today, we're back to the market being an employer's market. Okay. So on one hand, in the market, we are hearing doom and gloom stories. Okay, lots of downsizings, all kinds of unfortunate circumstances, which means that there is more competition for every role if you're a candidate. Okay, which means that there are fewer leadership roles because many organizations who are on a cost cutting journey are cost cutting out the highest paid leaders. So there's fewer leadership roles, and and it's my understanding that so many of these platforms, LinkedIn is one example, that show how many applicants there are for a search. So as a candidate, sometimes, a candidate could feel discouraged at the data that says, wow, 500 people have already applied for this job. Why should I even bother? Right?
Yeah.
So that's one piece of what's happening in this crazy market. However, there is a whole other side to the market. And that side may or may not include a candidate working with a recruiter. And I'll tell you why. So the other side of the market is that there are actually organizations who are hiring, where investment is still continuing to be made into companies, where CEOs are still trying to figure out, how do I hire the best possible person to help us build this business? And how do we continue to grow and scale and build our businesses? As a candidate, we want to be thinking that the ideal scenario is that people who are hiring stakeholders know you and know who you are in categories where you are likely to be able to add the greatest value. So that might mean competitors to the companies that you've worked in, or partners, or the broader categories that you've been working in. And so candidates need to be thinking about, how can I increase my circle of contacts and introductions directly with employers?
And that also would help in getting through the noise. When you say there's 500 applicants,
Yes.
If they recognize the name or they're familiar with it, you're highly likely to
That's right.
invited for an interview.
That's right. Exactly. So that's one part of it. The way that recruiters fit into this market that we're in now is that if you're a senior level individual in your career, so you are a leader, you are a C-suite leader, or you are a very senior level individual contributor, recruiters will be more likely to have opportunities for you if you're senior. It's really hard if you're just getting started in your career, or if you're looking to make a complete pivot. I want to get into product. And I get a lot of people reaching out to me with that. I've been in the CPG space. Now I want to get into product management and tech. It's really tough in this market for a recruiter to help you, back into the job market in these new roles, because when a tech company in this type of market engages a recruiter, it's often because they need specific experiences and senior level skills, which is why they're willing to justify engaging the services of a search firm. Okay? Because they're already getting all of the people with little to no experience applying to their websites. That's a lot of who is applying.
Yeah.
Okay? So as a candidate, you want to make sure that you're really making good use of your time. So if you're a candidate who's junior, getting started in your career, or you're trying to pivot into product, that's a hard time, and you've got to knock on a lot of doors and hope that you're going to be invited into interviews, leverage your network, go to meetup groups, build a community in the function that you want to be in. If you're a senior level person, connect with recruiters who you've worked with in the past, who are specialists in your category. And, seek to build a network of leaders who have the power to hire CEOs, investors, people who are running companies.
So, what would separate good from great talent? You probably come across thousands of candidates. So, in
Yeah.
how do you separate good from great?
Good from great. So I'm going to qualify that just a little bit, because if we think about um, so there's so separating good from great from the point of view of a recruiter is a little different than separating good from great concerning the function of the role. Okay. So as a recruiter, my good versus great begins with the candidate and really their story, their product story, the black and white outcomes of what they've achieved, and the holistic person. I'm looking at the whole individual, okay? The whole package. Unlike someone who's a leader in a tech company who may be dialing in to very specific outcomes relevant to the business challenge that they have. So here's an example of what I mean. When I'm meeting with a senior product person, the piece that always stands out initially and separates good from great is communication skill, and how that communication skill translates into their product story, their outcomes, how they're engaging and initiating a process, even with me, and how they align their product experiences to business. Here's some examples of what I mean by that. So, a good product manager may talk about, product outcomes. They're going to talk about their processes, roadmaps, what they've launched. They're going to talk about, efficiencies. They're going to talk about, maybe some growth metrics. Okay. But a great product manager is really aligning the product to the growth of the business and the company. They almost are able to step out and up above the product and talk about the product and its growth and its impact in the business.
Yep.
And it's a very interesting, very nuanced presentation that the great candidates have, because they're really concerned about the customer. These great candidates are concerned about the users and the experience that people are paying for through this software that's being delivered, right? That they're buying. And so that's a very interesting separation between a good candidate and a great candidate, rising above product, really in the business, which the product enables, right?
I guess it's that ability to, keep advocating for doing the right thing and
Yeah,
matching it to the business needs. So making
yeah,
sure, like you said, the customer has to come first.
yeah,
And if you're able to articulate that, because, there may be some mundane task you need to do
yeah.
on the technical side, but if you could articulate that in a way that makes sense for the customer and the company, then that makes a lot of sense. That's a
Yeah.
good summary.
The other piece about how communication skills really separate good versus great is that, great product managers really listen and apply active listening skills in their engagements with everyone along the journey of their interview process and of that hiring journey. They are in the moment with the people who they're engaging with. They're very dialed in to what is being asked of them, and they're curated. The best product managers, the great product managers, curate a message and lead the listener, lead someone down a path to get to the conclusion of what they're trying to communicate. Silly examples. So, you know, it's not unusual if I'm talking with someone earlier in their career, and if I ask a question, if I'm getting to know them for the very first time, tell me about the product you're currently managing and help me understand the use case. Pretty basic question, right? I mean,
Hmm.
tell me about the product that you're currently managing and walk me through that use case. Help me understand it. A senior or a great product manager will hear what I'm asking, and they're going to answer that question and seek to explain the use case and the value of that product to the customer or to the user. But someone who's not quite there yet might say, okay, well, before I get into that, let me tell you about me. Okay, I'm going to tell you about me. I graduated from the University of Waterloo in 1990, whatever. And then I went here. And then I went there.
Yeah.
Okay, but today, if recency bias matters, if there's something about your experience today that I'm asking about that is very relevant to a client who's retained us, I'd like to understand the product that you're managing today and what is the use case, right? So it's a silly little thing, but it really does communicate a lot about a candidate. Okay, so they're not listening,
No,
right?
so the whole premise of this podcast, articulate this, the whole premise is being able to adapt. And like you said, you may have your content, you may have your message, but how do you articulate to connect with that person, that brand, that however things are changing so quick. So having
Mm.
that ability is kind of where I want to kind of explore. So that's a powerful thing and a good tip for people listening in.
That's
You know,
that's
practice and get
yeah,
yourself ready to communicate what you need to based on what is happening or the questions that are coming in.
absolutely. And the other piece that kind of dovetails out of that as well is curiosity.
Hmm.
So great product managers are insatiably curious. There is no shortage of questions. They keep asking questions. They are constantly qualifying. They are seeking to understand, right? A great product manager goes into an interview with questions ready to ask that are appropriate for the hiring stakeholder they're meeting that day. If it's a senior product manager meeting a chief product officer for an interview, they're not going to ask HR related questions because they need to be asking questions about the product strategy and the customer and the pain points and qualifying that opportunity to understand what is the job that that I would be saying yes to if they decide that they want to hire me. And it's just so very interesting, when sometimes after an interview has happened and a candidate has met one of our clients and the client says, it was really interesting, Heidi. I thought the interview was going really well, but at the end when I said, do you have any questions for me? They said, no, you've answered them all. And I was wondering, you met with this chief product officer for 45 minutes. How could they have possibly answered all of your questions as a product man? So you might be a good product manager, but you're not great because a great product manager has no end to the questions they would ask. In fact, the CPO might say, you know what? We've run out of time, right? But I loved your questions.
Got it.
So that's a definite, kind of good versus great, another good versus great example.
Could there also be like, awkwardness or uncomfortableness during the process? Maybe they don't feel. I guess that also comes down between good and great. Is that great candidate is going to be able to, slow down, relax, and get
Mhm.
more to feel more of what their customer, which is their potential future employer, being able to
Absolutely.
answer those questions or even get those questions in front of their client.
Yes. You know what? And you bring up a really good point because, so first of all, to interview for a job, okay, the whole job search process, interviewing, it's normal for someone not to like to do this, okay? It's
Mhm.
normal not to like doing interviews. And because it's actually it's going to feel artificial. Everyone wants to look good, okay? So, you're trying to manage your external, how you're coming across. The employer, if they're super excited about a candidate and thinking, I hope this is the one, they might be extra selling, selling all the reasons why you should join. And it's not always the most authentic experience. Add to
Mhm.
that Zoom and not in person, where there's that human element, two people looking across a table from one another, smiling, laughing, reading body language. It is somewhat uncomfortable and not authentic, right?
Yeah.
But the senior, the great candidate is able to step into interview processes, not putting all of their emotional eggs into the basket.
Mhm.
Okay. They know that, well, this is one of many opportunities I could be looking at. And this is a process. And this process is this A/B test may not advance, right? We might conclude that this is not a fit, but I'm going in to investigate, they're going to investigate me, and we're going to, make some conclusions here. Versus a not as experienced candidate, still could be a good candidate, just not maybe as experienced, might go into this a nervous bundle, and it's the only opportunity they've got going on, and like it's got to work out, and as a result, that is projecting into the interview process. They're not maybe as confident. They are
Yeah.
presenting a bit more nervous. Um, yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of I
tough.
beginning of the pandemic, all different types of everyone working from home, different
Yeah,
environment. You're right. Taking that emotional connection out of it, it was very challenging to like connect with people when everything was virtual.
yeah, yeah. It's so
So,
true. Yeah. Mhm.
so how do you measure success of your recruiting efforts?
Well, a couple of ways. So first of all, practically speaking, success is, did I complete the engagement to the satisfaction of my client in that they hired someone? That is the core. So a company will engage our firm, our practice for a hire, and we get it done. And that is success in that engagement. But there's a lot more to it than that determines success. Um, and my role as a practice lead, in product, that sort of also shapes what success looks like. Um, we work very hard in our firm to try to create a process that is very efficient, very frictionless, where there's a lot of engagement between the client and the feedback and their feelings about candidates and the insights, their concerns. Same with our relationship with candidates, trying to make regular touch points to understand that the opportunity is actually in alignment to what they would want to do. Because it's a really big deal. If you think about, someone's going to quit their job, possibly, and go work at another company, and you're the one who's brought these individuals together. So so there's a lot of micro kind of touch points in that journey that help us to determine if we are being successful in the engagement.
You kind of started answering my next question, which I was going to talk about. How do you balance the needs and expectations of both the client and the candidate?
Yeah. Um, so it's all based on communication, and it's all about managing expectations. Okay. because the needs and expectations of a tech company when they're looking to hire, especially if it's a first-time executive hire. So if a CEO or a first-time founder is hiring their very first product leader, as an example, there's a learning process that's going to happen. And they're going to learn some really great things, and then they're going to learn some things that they weren't expecting to learn. And so working with that stakeholder, communicating, managing expectations is a really big part of that. The more we can, I don't want to use the word warn, but the more we can counsel them on what we have already learned in 20 years of doing this, the more likely they are to really be prepared for that, for an outcome when they realize the situation for themselves. Okay. And same with candidates, managing expectations, whether it's about compensation, whether it is about how long a journey is going to take. Like, listen, get ready. This interview process is not going to be fast.
Yeah.
Our client is going to take their time, and this could be a 7-week process. And you could get to the end of it and not be the selected candidate because they're looking to, they're going to run at least 3 people through that process, right? So there's a number of managing expectations and keeping both sides engaged. It's a lot of communication.
So, how are you building and maintaining the relationships across? And I'll speak my personal experience. I worked with you in the past. You've been absolute professional, consistent, kind, and very good at communicating. I always knew where I was in the process. You've been great. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this show, because I trust your opinion, and I know that you're very good at what you do. You're very passionate in your profession. So how do you build, what is your secret sauce? What do you do to build that relationship with both the candidate and the client?
Well, so this is a work in progress constantly. I'll be honest with you. It was easier earlier in my career when the scope of my work was not as large as it is today. The longer you're in this business, especially when you specialize as I do in product, the community of people I know or have engaged with keeps growing month by month, year after year. And so it becomes increasingly difficult to stay connected and just kind of stay touch base with everyone. So it is something that I'm always trying to be better at. So I actually I really try to focus on sort of key markers in people's careers, to reach out or to connect, to celebrate, changes, even if I haven't been a part of helping someone make that move into their next opportunity, but just connecting. I use every tool possible, whether it's LinkedIn or texting, phone calls. Sometimes I just pick up the phone and I will just call people, old-fashioned, old school, phoning people. And it's interesting what happens if I just phone someone out of the blue who, I might have known for 15 years, and I just want to, celebrate an announcement that they've made, or just, get caught up in terms of what they've been working on lately. And it's always amazing to me, the reaction I get with, you're phoning me. It helps be remembered, right?
Yeah.
I'm the person who actually phoned you or texted you about something. I'm really fortunate and blessed that I work for a really great company who allows me the freedom to be creative on LinkedIn and with stuff that I do in social channels that keep me sort of in the thoughts of product leaders in the product community in North America. So, I get a lot of great messages and notes from people in the market just to say hi, or giving me the update on their situation. Hey, just so you know, I just got promoted, or hey, just so you know, I took your advice and I got a raise, or I made a move to a product leadership role. And so people, it's a very reciprocal relationship. Um, I'll tell people I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can. I can't always do it within
Yeah.
as fast of a timeline as I wish I could, but I will reply to you eventually and celebrate with you in that moment, whatever is going on and whatever to the degree that you want to share with me.
I can confirm that you are responsive and you will return the messages. So you've always been great at that. So
Uh,
you have been at Martyn Bassett Associates for over 20 years now. You're in a profession where celebrate movement, help
yeah.
people find new homes, but you've been there for 20 years. So can you tell me like what's kept you there for so long?
I know I can't even believe it. So I don't think anybody joins a company thinking I'm going to be there for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. It just sort of organically happens. And then you look back and you say, wow, I can't believe I've been here for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And I'm the same. What's kept me here really are a couple of specific things. First of all, I love the team I work with. I work for a great boss. He's a very open to change, visionary leader, and he allows me to be me. And I appreciate that. And to work in the way that I am inspired to come to work every day and to do the work that I do. And then the other big reason is that I love what we do. I like how we do search. I love the clients who engage us. I mean, we work with a lot of founders and CEOs, and they trust us. They trust us with those tough to find hires. They trust us with their dreams and their fears. Heidi, will we be able to attract someone? Do you think we'll be able to get someone? And I'm always thinking, how can you ask me that? Of course. And I better deliver for you. I mean, there's no other option here. We are going to do this. And so I love the quality of the work that we do and the companies we work with. And so that's a huge part of it, you know?
That's
That's what's kept me here. Yeah.
That's amazing that you have that sort of relationship and you've had that growth. It's just great.
Mhm.
So we're almost out of time, but there
Okay.
is one topic I do want to talk about, and I know it's a hot topic for a lot of people, is um, how like talk to us like compensation and negotiating offers. This is a sensitive issue. Some people don't like talking about that, and sometimes it's brought up front. So what can you share about best practice or advice for how to negotiate for yourself?
I love talking about money and compensation. So if there is a product leader out there who needs someone to just bounce a situation off of, I am there for you. um, and most recruiters should be open to talking with you if you're a leader about compensation, because our business, first of all, our business is based on your salaries. Because if we are successful in the outcome that we are hired for, we're going to earn our revenue based on what you earn. So that's why recruiters should always be a resource for senior level talent in the marketplace. Now, talking about compensation, what's really important to understand first before getting anywhere in this topic is to understand that money and the number on an offer letter and what you earn is not the number one reason that senior people are likely to convert to an offer acceptance. Money is not number one for most senior people. I say most, okay? It's not number one, because the more senior you get in your career, and let's keep talking about product here, you are at some point going to reach some kind of a market ceiling for the category that you're in. You're not going to keep earning an additional to infinity and beyond, right?
Yeah.
At some point, you're gonna hit some kind of a peak. And the more senior you become, what you often will realize is it's about the quality of the work and the problems that you really want to be solving for and the people who you are going to be working with. I always say, listen, if you're looking at an opportunity, there's got to be two questions that you ask first. Number one, is that the job I want to do? Because if that's not the job you want to do, no amount of money is going to keep you doing that job. And number two, is that the group of people I want to do that job with? Because if you love the work, but you can't stand the people, you're not going to stay. No amount of money will keep you there. You are going to be the person who is very quickly taking calls from recruiters again, or always looking out, for the next thing, thinking that the grass might be greener. Okay. So these are the first two questions you want to ask. Is it the job I want to do? And are those the people I want to do that job with? Now, money and compensation is important, but there's context to everything. Okay. It is most important when you're in the early stages of your career, because when you're a fresh graduate and you're moving from one company to the other, there's going to be the bigger jumps in your base salary and possibly in the variable plan as well. The more senior you get, oftentimes you come to a point in your career where you have to make some big decisions about, do I make the move from, let's say if you've been in the startup community for most of your career, do I make the move into larger organizations where the value of stock, RSUs, is actually a significant proportion of my earnings? Or am I going to remain in kind of startup scale-ups where we're building value into a business with the hopes that our options are going to become valuable one day? And, if we think about, money, there's no doubt that if you work for a publicly traded company with RSUs and their stock performance, that can really be a game changer. That's not necessarily an option for all candidates, but, for many senior people, that's the big decision that you have to really think about, right? Of course, the challenges when we think about product talent, specifically working for really large organizations, is that, for many people, the salary may be higher, the RSU benefit is tremendous, but the piece of the product that you own is suddenly much smaller, right? Than what you may have had in a small to mid-sized to scale-up organization. Pros and cons to everything. I know I'm kind of talking a lot about compensation. Was there a specific question that you wanted me to sort of dive deeper
It's
into?
more,
Money is a big conversation, and it's different person to person.
it's also when you talk about total compensation, right? Like you were saying, there's so many different other perks and things that are
Yeah.
available at different companies, different levels, things like that nature. So,
Yeah. I think that, for anybody who is engaging in a job search process in partnership with a recruiter, working through a recruiter for an opportunity, the value that a recruiter brings to that situation is that now if you want the job and the client wants you, you have an agent
yeah.
working with you and negotiating typically on your behalf. And that's a beautiful scenario for candidates, because suddenly you're not the one, involved in discussions where you could be perceived as actually being quite inexperienced in negotiating or getting emotional because it's your income, or someone misunderstanding your approach with negative consequences, right?
You also act like a mediator, so you're able, like you said, take the emotion out, help
That's it.
smooth over anything, advocate for both sides. You know the ultimate
That's
goal,
it.
but keep the relationship strong till the very end.
That's right. And you want, as a candidate, you want nothing but respect and excitement about you joining that organization. That's your goal.
Absolutely. Well, we're out of time for this episode. I cannot thank you enough for you taking the time. You've always been a big supporter in the product community, so thank you for that. Thank you, Heidi, for joining this week's episode on recruitment. If you want to give a quick shout out for where people can find you, I will have all your contact details on the screen and down below in the description. But if you want to tell people where they can find you.
For sure. I mean, LinkedIn is my best friend. So find me on LinkedIn, Heidi Ram. And if you're part of the Toronto Product Management Association, I'm in the Slack channel. So drop me a note in the TPMA Slack channel.
Amazing. So thank you again. Thank you very much. And we'll continue these conversations in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care. Bye now. A big thank you to Heidi for taking the time to join us and sharing her wisdom from over 20 years of recruitment experience. Heidi, your insights into product leadership have been invaluable, and we're grateful for your transparency and advice. And to all the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to support the channel, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who you think might find this interesting. And don't forget to click the bell notification so that you can be one of the first to know when we upload a new video. Again, our warmest thanks to Heidi for joining today, and to all the viewers that tuned in to watch this episode. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.